Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, host of Vancouver Island Time. I'm here on He Said, She Said, They Said with...
Hi, it's Andrew Plank with LePage. We are doing He Said, She Said, They Said. So he's saying and she's saying, and we've got a they today as well. We've got a special guest, Russell Cass.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how was your new year?
We had a quiet new year. Just stuck around at home, had one of the boys. I had a hard time staying up till midnight. Yeah, every new gray hair just makes it so I want to nap in the afternoon a little bit more.
I went to the House of Botang, which was the first time we'd been out for dinner in a long time.
Good. That's a great spot. Yeah.
I don't know how we would have made money because there are so few people, right? And the tables were so far apart. And
yeah, I think they do a lot of catering or takeouts. And amazing food. So a little plug for House of Botang while we're at it. Yeah.
It was great.
Spot on the West Shore. Yeah.
And so how did your end of year? The last time we spoke was the beginning of December, I think the 10th or so.
You mean end of year real estate wise? It was slow for December, but it was a banner year. I have to look at the numbers actually in terms of number of actual transactions, because with property values and real estate agents tend to be commission based. We make more income if the home values are higher. But my last great big year was 2016, and 2021 blew it out of the water by a long shot.
Okay,
so busy. Yeah.
Good. How many transactions did you end up doing?
I have to know. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good agents track their transactions. I just put my head down and do what I do, but I have to look at those numbers. It's a good thing to look at the past to sort of project the future.
I got an accepted offer with conditions, and actually this is how we ended up with our guest today, because we got an inspection done, we had financing. So if you ever looking for a property, sometimes it's a good time to buy between Christmas and New Year's. And these buyers heard me say that, and so they waited, and we saw the property. And I think it was overpriced to begin with, which is sometimes a strategy, because sometimes a strategy to look for a house like that, because then you can get money off.
Potentially, if the seller is beginning to get desperate or reasonable. Yes.
Yeah. Desperate or reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get today's guest on. It's Russell Cass. Hello, Russell. How are you? Oh, sorry. I muted you.
Oh. All right. So hello again. I guess I'm the they in this situation.
You're the they. We're all the they now. Now that we've got. Or you could be a he said, actually, or a she said, however you identify. It's all good.
Well, it's all fun to be with you guys, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
So when we were talking with the client at the home inspection, one of the things you were saying was that it was remarkably quiet for home inspections this past year. I'm just wondering what comparatively are the numbers compared to a normal year?
So for our little organization, and we've got 5 home inspectors, we would traditionally through the summer months do 140, 150 inspections a month. That dropped down to the 80 to 90 a month. By December, we're generally down to around about 30 or 40 a month. And I think in the December month, I haven't got the exact number, but I know it's less than 30. So far in January, we've had 2 inspections.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. Holy smokes.
So it's a big hit to the home inspection industry. And I think really where it comes to is pre-listing. If anybody gets an inspection, they know the circumstances of that house, what money they're going to need to put in, where the faults are. And people buying unconditional aren't looking at that. And so everybody doing an inspection ended up losing out until they got wise that they just have to join what everybody else is doing and buy unconditional.
So, like, one of the issues Andrew was mentioning before we started is when people write an offer and it's subject to inspection, often now it's not getting accepted because there are unconditional offers. So you go with the sure thing or you go with the unsure conditional offer. And then the other issue is if no offers, nobody's doing pre-listing inspections.
Sellers are not, you mean?
Sellers are not.
Pre-listing inspection, because there's not a necessity, perhaps, from their perspective.
Well, I mean, with that, we generally do those. They factor into our numbers. It's always historically been a lower number. But for example, in the summer months, we'd be doing around about 10 to 15 pre-list inspections traditionally.
It's one of those things that, I find interesting in this business is that, people don't necessarily want to spend money and they don't understand that you sometimes do need to spend money to make money. And this can come into, realtors marketing a home when in a market where everything sells to say, well, I don't have to put a lot of effort into this because it's going to sell quickly. But I don't like that train of thought because the more effort you put into it, the better it's going to sell. It's not about getting a sale. It's about having a successful sale. And for a seller to get a pre-inspection, I have seen it open up the doors to more offers, to better offers, to higher priced offers. And in the end, I believe it's money well spent, yet probably 1 in 10 properties has a pre-inspection, if even that.
Yeah. So, sorry, Jane, go ahead.
Well, what are the pros and cons of a pre-inspection, Russell?
So, like I said, our numbers have always been low on that. But you just made a really, really good point there, Andrew. You said you get better results, potentially better income. Part of all of that is keeping the income after you got it. So now we find a problem as a buyer that maybe your home inspector didn't discover, and you're going after him, or you bought unconditional with no inspection, and now it turns out that there was something that is discovered in the property that was not disclosed. Well, now we have a threat against that high income that you received, and some of it's going to get taken away. Yeah, there's all the hassle of court case, and that is where often home inspectors, like 2008, after that, we started making money on the court cases of the fallout of all of that. And I expect the same thing's going to happen here as we move forward. I've already had one instance where a property just days before closing had the basement flood.
Yeah.
And so the owners was called in to represent them to kind of look to see what's the damage, quantify it, and determine that, they did the best they could. And they had done a partial redo of the perimeter drain system, not a complete. And through investigation, it was found that that drain system was not deep enough. So incorrectly installed. Disclosure was that it had been partly upgraded. It turned out that the homeowners had done it themselves. That wasn't disclosed. So in the end, there was an arrangement between buyer and seller paid part of the redo of the entire perimeter drain system. So it's keeping that money in your pocket after the sale.
Well, it's also asking, like, as a buyer agent, asking good questions.
Yeah.
Like, was the perimeter drain done by a professional?
Yeah, and unfortunately, the situation as property is, this whole thing is unfolding, is conditions have gone out, and so have questions. We just want to get the property, let's just tie it up.
And there's a conversation with buyers when we are working with our buyers that is essentially, you have to understand that you're going to get this property virtually as is where is. The seller has a positive obligation to disclose any material latent defects, but the definition of that is pretty narrow in a sense. So things that could normally be found in a building inspection, such as a pipe sticking out of the ground that could indicate an underground oil tank, or evidence of flooding in the basement, that happens regularly. If it's there and visible for anyone to see, then it's not a necessary disclosure. It could end up in court, but it's not a necessary legal disclosure. And this is the thing that a building spot, as you alluded to 2008, I think in the next 6 months to a year, we're going to start seeing a lot of court cases from people who have bought unconditionally, or at least, if not court cases, a lot of newspaper stories about the sad fact that people bought a home that has become a money pit for them, unbeknownst to them. And they're going to blame their realtor, and they're going to blame, they're going to look for other problems. But the fact is that people are buying without doing full due diligence, taking a risk, and rolling the dice and gambling. And some people are losing.
We have people sign disclosures saying that they're acknowledging that they're going unconditional and which conditions are going unconditional. I mean, it's kind of a duplicate of the form that we sign anyway, but still, it gets them to acknowledge that they're legally,
that there is a risk and that they have a right to do a building inspection.
Well, and that raises another point. The pre-listing inspections that we used to do, as I said, were small numbers, but they began to disappear completely. In fact, they're gone because everybody that did a pre-inspection got the information on the property and what needed to be done and where the faults were. So they would offer accordingly. Everybody else that was unconditional offered without that knowledge. And so every single client that did a pre-list inspection never got the house. Why would you keep doing it? You wouldn't. You'd stop. And that, I think, is really where the government needs to step in. And in my opinion, make home inspections mandatory so that everybody has that moment of pause. We all know what is going on. It would help in a lot of areas. One, it would slow things slightly. It would also make home inspectors a hell of a lot more aware of shortfallings in their own education if they got sued once or twice where they said it was all fine. And what you would have is 8 home inspectors doing a home inspection. One of them gets it. That poor home inspector didn't pick up the perimeter drains weren't working. All other 7 did. And you would create a whole different world.
Yeah.
So one of the issues though is a buyer. I mean, I've seen this with my own clients, is that they've gone in, done a home inspection, then they didn't get it. They wrote another offer on another property subsequently after like 5 times where they went unconditional. How do you handle pre-inspections if somebody has questions? Like a buyer?
So there's the privacy issue, which is regulated, and we have to be very aware of that. So we get permission upfront from the seller that we're able to talk to buyers, and we tell them what they need to say to that person who's asking the questions to give us permission. So as long as that's repeated to us, we know that, yes, that's legitimate, because I have had in the past realtors phoning me to find out about that property, and I can't talk to you, not without permission of the actual owner.
And when you're talking about a mandatory inspections, we're talking perhaps, I know the government is doing a study on, a probationary period, sort of a cooling off period for buyers. They make their offer, they get it accepted, and they've got, we don't know yet what that might look like, if it's even going to come to pass, but that might include some time frame or some sort of mandatory ability to do an inspection.
It's admirable whatever you can come up with to resolve the issue, but a cooling off period, in my mind, and very politely, is idiotic. Because what's going to happen is people will now put offers on 9 houses. I
agree.
I mean, it's just stupid. Did I say that? Sorry, apologize.
No, you know what? It's definitely, whenever these things come out as proposal, I know my thinking cap goes on to say, well, what effect is this going to have, and what are my clients going to be doing to sort of overcome this? And I know that for buyers who are having a hard time finding a property, and who haven't been making offers on one property because they don't want to, they want to get the other one that's coming up tomorrow, and offers are today on one, offers are tomorrow on the other. they're going to make offers on both now with a cooling off period.
But you can't do that.
Well, you can if there's a cooling off period. Depends on how it's structured.
Colleen Milne says hello.
Hey, Colleen.
I want to actually say something because, Russell, I know some building inspectors come and go in this business, and there's different sort of arcs of the trajectory of their business. Russell is highly respected in our industry. Most of the realtors in my networking group speak highly of him. They're his go-to guy. He's their go-to guy. A lot of people I speak to go to Russell and his company for inspections. So the fact that Russell's business is slowing is absolutely related to the industry and what's going on in it. And I just want to say that because we have a lot of respect for Russell. When you hear somebody sort of slowing down, you're going, what's going on in their business? It's the effect that's happening. And this is a tragic effect that's happening, which is, we're talking about Russell's business, but we're talking about also the fact
industry.
that the industry, and that people are losing out on protections because they're not getting those inspections that they need. And this, I'm sure, is not just affecting Russell. It's wide. It's industry wide.
Yeah,
right.
Andrew,
and so, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Andrew, I appreciate that. We're in the fortunate position that although our home inspection business has dwindled to almost nothing, we're all applied science technologists. So we've jumped onto the horse of depreciation reports. We've always done them, but we've ramped that up. We're doing a lot more consulting. So we're able to meet our financial needs. But I just feel for the entire industry, for the home inspectors that are not able to jump onto something else. They're going to be lost.
But that's not the reason why we need to be worried that they're going to lose their job. The reason why we need to be worried is at the very granular level is that buyers are going into purchasing properties without knowing what's going on, and potentially sellers are putting themselves at risk because they then may have legal implications if they haven't disclosed. It's not what you know, it's when you find it out. I've got this issue happening with a seller right now who didn't disclose that their heat pump wasn't working.
Yeah.
And my buyer, and we found out coincidentally. So, and we did an unconditional offer. There's probably B in the crawl space, but I told them that before we wrote the offer, and there's like issues that come up. And if you're with somebody who maybe doesn't know what they're looking at, and specifically, I love using Russell for condos because Russell looks not only at the condo itself, he looks at the whole building. And so if you're especially writing an offer, people go, well, there's a depreciation report. Well, how many condos actually follow the depreciation report, Russell?
Very few, because the majority of them are not compliant with the regulations. Regulations pretty specific, and the projections must take into account repairs, maintenance, and replacement. And probably 90 to 95% of them are heavy on the replacement and not so good on the repairs and maintenance, because that you need to be technically competent and experienced and knowledgeable to be able to project it. And a lot of people can't.
This goes to the heart of the matter of, without good information, it's hard to make good decisions, right?
Absolutely.
So that applies to depreciation reports, and that applies to building inspections and buying a home without doing proper due diligence. And I just find that everybody's different. Some people are happy to live with their head in the sand, but I find that, when people are unsure about things, they're hesitant, whether they're unsure about what's in a depreciation report and buying a strata building, or whether they're buying a home. When they have the answers, and as Jane mentioned, if you already know that the heat pump doesn't work, you might still be paying a lot of money for that home. You might pay more than anyone else for that home, but at least going into it what you have to do to buy that home, and you're not going to be complaining about it later because and every house has problems. Buying a new house.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Jane pointed out, the real issue in all of this is buyers buying without that information. And I suspect you're right, and I know it will occur, is court cases will come after the fact. But judges are also, they're not going to be very lenient when you bought unconditional. I mean, these people with a flooded basement, the first thing I said is, why are you concerned? It's unconditional.
So I have another question. So what are you finding? Is anybody coming to you and asking for inspections after they've gone unconditional?
Yeah. The ones we're getting a few of those, but not a lot, not a big volume.
Yeah, and that'd be hard to get access to the home until after the home has been conveyed.
Well, you can write it in. I mean, but you have to be specific that you want an inspection. And one of the issues that hasn't been mentioned is the fact that we get a lot of information from inspectors regarding information for insurance.
Yes. Yeah.
So we need to know like piping, wiring, age of hot water tank,
Right.
old tank, all that.
And the seller doesn't always know that. They're not always willing to give access to the home after the fact, after it's unconditional, or they just may not be sharing it. I want to step back a sec because Russell, you said, why are they concerned about that flood? Because it's already unconditional. The one thing that they should be concerned about that flood, number one, would be, well, I mean, goes into disclosures if they had prior floods and they hadn't disclosed, and so forth. But if this was a new issue, they had no evidence of prior floods and it just happens, still the contract does state the home is sold and it will be, ready on completion on possession in substantially the same condition as found. So they definitely have to remedy it back to where it was.
Yep.
Do they have to replace the entire perimeter drain system? Probably not from a legal perspective, no. But they do need to actually repair and make sure that the place is condition is found.
They need to have it operational and put in correctly. So the money they spent doing it themselves and not putting it at the correct depth and they probably have to put in 2 drains now, right? To bring it up to code?
Yes. If you were doing a full replacement, code is a whole different ballgame. But if you're repairing an existing system, so remember they did part of it, they didn't do it all. So that's a repair, no requirement for 2 pipes. This whole thing in the end came out resolved because buyer and seller acted maturely and they financially came to an agreement. And that's what I told them right up front. My initial comment was, why worry about it? They wanted quantified, just exactly as you're saying, to make sure that it was in a condition, and it was dry when I got there. It was back to condition that was originally observed.
Right.
But the problem is they did make a disclosure, but they didn't complete the disclosure, and it was their ignorance. The buyer, the actual owner themselves, not the realtor, because when the client tells you this is what we've done, then that's what you've done.
But he or she could have said who did
it. Yeah, could have.
Yeah, and that is an area where, questions are really, really important, and making sure you ask those questions. And that's one of those things that, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't always remember to think of these things. It's our job to try to do our best to get all these questions answered. I have definitely had clients, I'm thinking of one particular property in Sydney where this is a similar example. The seller had said, perimeter drains were done, and there was a lot of work done in that house throughout. And the seller was, a pipe fitter, plumber, had some background with gas, but they purchased this home immediately smelling gas in the place. A lot of the work wasn't done properly. And the perimeter drains again had been done by the homeowner, not well done. So.
Yeah. But what's driving the whole thing is exactly what Colleen is saying, is fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So people don't want to be, they don't want to not purchase a property. And sometimes they say, well, if I don't purchase it, it's going to cost me more in the long run if the market goes up. That's why people are doing it.
And so I was giving an example earlier. I got an email this morning from a client I've been working with for a while. They've been trying to save up for years to get themselves to the point of buying a home. And just as they're ready to go and buy a home, prices have been ramping up. And so we were looking, for the last, 6 months, 3/4 of a year, looking for something. And there was a place we made an offer on 4 months ago. It was listed. It was an estate. It was around 900,000 that it was listed for. Went to multiple offers. It went to an unconditional offer at around 1.2, just under 1.2. That's 4 months ago. Today it listed again. They sent it to me. They sent it to me with one word in the subject line, which was sigh, because
I thought it was another 4-letter word.
it could have been another 4-letter word equally. I'm sure that he's just being polite. It's listed for 1.5. They have only cleared out the place. It looks like maybe they've cleaned it. There's been no work done inside. This is an older home on a busy street. 1.5 in Gordon Head.
Yeah, but it may not. It may not sell.
It may not sell for that. No. But so to the point, though, is the fear of missing out. People are saying, I want to get part of this gravy train, and I'm seeing all these property values going on this arc that's going way too high. And even if I buy a home and it has problems, if the trajectory continues on, I'm insulated. I'm not understanding that maybe this trajectory could hit a wall at some point.
So I just wanted to that point. I had clients who were interested in a house. We wrote an offer. It was listed high. I told them I thought it was listed high. We offered 100,000 less, and they didn't accept it. They countered, and then they ended up bringing the price down to where they countered when my client said no. And but I thought it was at a reasonable price then. So when they relisted, it was at a reasonable price, and then they got 3 offers. So listing high, like buying at 1.1 or 1.2 and then listing at 1.5 doesn't mean it's going to sell. Like, let's not confuse the
That's not. I am seeing what had been listing for under $1 million and selling for $1 million to 1.2 in Gordon Head 6 months ago is now listing at the 1.5 to 1.7 range. Is it selling? Is it going to sell? Maybe not. But you know what? We need more inventory, and this is going to be starting conversations between buyers and sellers. And maybe these list and stay on market for 6 months or 9 months or a year.
Yeah. But, well, right now there is only one list. There's only 7 listings in Gordon Head anyway.
Yeah.
And I think this goes to all of it. I mean, it's going round and round in a circle, because the shorter the availability of property becomes, the higher the demand goes. As that demand goes, owners are starting to look at, well, we want to sell, we want to downsize, but we don't want to leave Victoria, and we can't sell because there's nothing available. So we're going to take it off the market until this changes. And so the pool will get smaller and smaller. How do we bring that to a logical conclusion? There's only 2 places that there's any real control other than taxation. Is make it a condition that you must have finance. Okay, great. Well, some people don't need finance. Okay. Or make it a condition of a home inspection. Put everybody on the same playing field. I know it's self-serving, but I can't see another way short of saying, okay, well, let's just tax houses to a higher proportion. That's not going to work. It's not a mentality that's going to be constructive. We want, I think, a solution that is going to put people in homes that they can afford, and that they can afford to hold on to without creating a long-term economic crisis. That's really what we're after.
Well, that's a good segue into our stats. So, thank you for coming today, Russell, and talking to us.
It's always a pleasure, Russell.
Really nice chatting with you guys. Always lots of fun.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing you next time.
Excellent.
Okay. So how do people get in touch with you, Russell?
My number is on the bottom, and you did ask for me for it. And in a moment of a brain fart, I gave you my own cell number. It should really be the office number, but that's fine.
778.
778-351-1928.
Okay. And then how do they reach you at email?
Admin@homecheckcanada.com.
Oh, .com.
.com. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
gosh.
we really messed up.
No, that's okay.
I
It
don't
could be, you could have affected the entire industry. That's why my business is so quiet.
There you go.
Okay,
Because nobody knows how to reach you
homecheckcanada.com.
now.
Oh
.com.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We had .ca.
Nice chatting with you guys.
Yeah.
Get
Take
out
care,
there and
Russell.
sell houses. We need
We'll
you.
go get some houses for you.
All right.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you, Russell. See you.
Cheers. Bye.
There we go. We got it correct now. Sorry, everybody.
So let's just do that once again on behalf of Russell. So Russell, to reach him at HomeCheck, the phone number is 778-351-1928. The correct email is admin@homecheckcanada.com. That's all one word. Or check out his website, homecheckcanada.com.
Yeah, and I highly recommend him. And thanks, Josh has enjoyed watching the show. Okay, we're going to talk about
Great, Josh.
that. So let's bring it in. Boom.
Bring it in.
Woohoo! All righty. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Just so you understand, at this time of year right now, it is normal for us to have low number of listings. Generally, you're going to see the cycle of listings and how they follow a rhythm over the year. So let's start. So you want to do the one on the...
I can start with Market Watch.
Okay.
Sure. So new listings as of the last 7 days, 104 new listings. 65 listings have gone pending of the available market. 5 properties had a price decrease, 3 had a price increase, 2 came back on market. 138 ended up transaction completing in the last week. 13 expired and 2 were withdrawn.
Okay. So the list to sale ratio is about 60%.
Yeah, there's definitely more listings than sales, which is interesting. Often in the last little while, we've seen those almost 1-to-1.
Exactly. And then, so month to date, we have 53 unconditional sales. So those are offers where they've removed their conditions. This is compared to the month of January last year of 646 for the total month. So we're lower than normal, I would say, month to date. And then new listings, 128. That's compared to 911 in January last year. And then active listings, we are low at 686 compared to 1321. And I will say what happened last year, December of 2020, was we oversold. I think we had 600 sales and 400 new listings. And last month we had significant sales, but not at that number. So around the 400 mark, I think.
Yeah. And, we're going to start seeing as we go, into the spring, we're going to see more and more properties being listed. A lot of people choose not to bring their property on market in the dead of winter. You can see it even here in the last couple of years. And if you go back, this kind of pattern kind of repeats itself a little bit more even. Right now, it's very skewed lower. But you see this ramp up every January, February, March, April into the spring. And so the point, I guess, is at the end of this month, our number might be closer. It won't be around the 1,200 mark, but it'll be up from the 686 to maybe 900 or 1,000.
I'm going to hold you to that.
I'm going to say 900 by end of month.
So this I don't know if you can see it on the screen. I can see myself doing it. But the market in 2020 peaked in June, and normally that would have peaked in April. So so the market shifted 2 months. I keep saying that every time we do this, but
right, because of the COVID.
Yeah, the COVID.
Okay.
Okay, so when we look at 2 years ago, we can see April, the number of listings went down. That's when everything was shut down. And the bump up happened 2 months later. We peaked in list to sale ratio in March of 2021. And what that did was you could see the number of listings wasn't high, but the number of sales was high.
Mhm.
So if you look at the delta or the difference between the top of the straight line and the bar graph, that's where the list to sale ratio was closest. So,
Okay.
and then we had another bump in August of 2021 here, where the list to sale ratio was extremely high, and then again in November. But interestingly, when you get to the next slide, you can see we're actually leveling off in terms of our list to sale ratio, but we are around 100 here.
So what we're seeing is in this, the ramp up of this graph, the acceleration in this graph is slowing down. We're moving more towards like a level line, as you said. So in theory, we're still in a really, really, really tight seller's market, but it doesn't look like it's got much further it can go. And as opposed to that peak that we had in March of 2021, we're definitely kind of meeting, at least maybe we'll have some consistency for a little while.
So in March of 2021, 10 houses listed, 12 were selling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now we're at 10 houses listed, 10 selling.
Yeah.
Okay. Single family home prices. So, being in the business now 16 years, I see there's leveling off, then a jump, then a leveling off, then a jump. It feels like there was a fairly level market until December 2020. And then once we hit January last year, we jumped and we're fairly steady in price from about 1.2 million. And then again, we jumped in October up to 1.3 for, this is average.
Yeah, average in all areas of Greater Victoria. So it really shows that thanks, Colleen. It really shows that, things do tend to sort of jump. I find that they do seem to jump at sort of towards the end of the year in prep for the new spring. And then there's a new reality every spring as well. Spring often will bring higher prices as well, but that jump seems to happen in the last couple of years at the end of the year.
I never thought about that.
I wonder, though, we haven't really talked about this, and maybe we can get into it, but property taxes are out, and a lot of people are now having the conversations around, well, my house is worth so much more than I thought. And we're seeing I think we're going to see a bump of people actually selling and asking based on property taxes.
So what Andrew is saying is property tax assessment. Those are based on market sales last year between May 1st and September 30th, I think, and then their average for July and then adjusted. And so people are looking at data that's 6 months out of date, but they are assuming that that's the price of their home, the value of their home.
Yeah. And although it's 6 months out of date, it can still be, people say, oh, my home is worth 20% more than assessed today because property values have gone up 20% since then and so forth. And it's not necessarily true. But people are making sort of back of the envelope calculations about their home value based on assessment. Not the best way to go about it. But the fact is that assessments have just come out. So people are starting to think about it more.
If you want an assessment of your home, you can talk to Andrew or me.
Yeah. Either of us would be happy to, and not a property assessment, not a tax assessment, a market value assessment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how about we do that next week? We'll talk about
we'll talk about taxes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Condo prices. So we're looking house prices up to 1.3 average, just over. Condo prices have jumped. So 2 years ago they were at 500,000 and now they're up around 650. Definitely there was a drop. I think it was 15% during COVID. Everyone was trying to move out of close proximity.
Little boxes. Yeah. And downtown. And elevators, shared elevators and stairways and hallways and so on. What's interesting though, like if we, from the house prices, we talked about the bumps that we saw in sort of end of the year. And yet here we see the bumps kind of more into the spring. We don't really see.
I don't know. August.
Okay. I'm just looking at February, March, April, from January to February 2021. Yeah, no. Okay.
And negatory on that.
All right. All right. All right.
But I do find, though,
Being corrected.
I do find that there are two times when, to me, the condo market's hot. One is in the spring, when we have traditionally people moving for military moves, and end of spring for university and college, and then in August, September again, when we have people moving here.
Yeah.
Okay. Townhomes. Woo! Cha-ching. So 2 years ago, they were at 550. A year ago, they jumped up to 675, and now they're at 825. So there's been a little jump down since October 2021. And this is so interesting to me because I helped somebody buy in James Bay a couple of years ago at 550. And now it's like, I felt like calling them up and saying, hey, is anybody selling in your complex? And I just realized it's out of my client's price range now.
Right. Yeah, no, housing, it's interesting when you think about relative values of houses, townhouses, and condos, and where they traditionally sit, because they move around somewhat. Sometimes a condo on average might be worth half of what a house is, and maybe it's sometimes a third, and sometimes and the townhouses for a while were kind of this forgotten middle, where people were either saying, I'm going to move into a house, or I want condo down, I want condo lifestyle. And the townhouse was kind of missed. And it seems like it's come up a lot because it's a great alternative to a single family home. How single family homes have come up so much in value, but it's the relative differences I find fascinating, because depending on our culture and what's going on in our society and our the financial picture for people, it shifts.
And that's why I like doing this show with you, because you're thoughtful.
Oh, geez, shucks. Thanks.
Okay. That's a duplicate. Okay. So single family homes, I know this is hard to read. That's why we're going to read it out. But units in December 2021 sold. Let's just do single family homes, condos, and townhomes. So single family total, all areas, was 207. For Greater Victoria was 198. And condos, apartments was 152. Row townhouses was 49. And overall, it's down from last year, 33% for single family homes in Greater Victoria. This is the units sold down. Condos were down 22%, and row townhouses were down 14%. So that's this month compared to last year. Do you want to do the purple part?
I guess so. Hang on. I was just trying to do a screenshot here. The purple part. Okay. So this month, average dollars for single family home in Greater Victoria, 1,324,154. That's just mind-boggling. Greater Victoria, other areas, 1.478111. So where are other areas? What do we mean by that?
Single family Greater Victoria and other areas?
Yeah. What do we mean by other areas? Because other areas other than Greater Victoria, are we talking Duncan and...
I think the islands too.
Yeah, the island in general. Our local realtors can list anywhere in BC technically, and can put it to our board, but most of the listings are going to be Greater Victoria. It's funny that number is so high, but it might probably include some waterfronts or something.
Yeah, like the Gulf Islands and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Condo apartment, the average price in December 2021 was $663,079, whereas row townhouse homes were $876. Interesting, manufactured homes are 284,771. We don't talk a lot about manufactured homes in terms of a great investment. You're not buying an investment in actual land, getting a lease, generally speaking. But if you're looking for affordable living in Victoria, that might be an option to consider and talk about.
But what's interesting is the price compared to last year is up 33.5%. And for condos, it's up 36%. And for row townhomes, it's up 20.7%.
33 for single family homes. Yeah.
The median is interesting too, because the average talks about if you take everything and divide it by the number, then you get the average. But the median is the middle number. So it's also up 36% from last year. Condos are up 30% and row townhomes are up 23.2%.
Yeah. And, they say the rising tide floats all boats, but it's not equal, as you can see here. There's really a stronger demand for single family homes because those prices have gone up. If all things being equal, it would go up proportionally. And this is what I was stating on the last slide is, these things seem to be going in different directions over time, and it depends on what's going on for our needs. And right now, townhouses still haven't actually gone up as much as some of the others, which is interesting to me.
Yeah. So the median this year for single family homes was 1.225, and the median last year, December 2020, was 901,000.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Yeah. The median for condos was 566, and last year was 435. And the median for row townhouses this year is 770 compared to 625. So kudos to those who bought. And when is a good time to plant a tree? Now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I did was I went through and just looked at two different areas in kind of major areas of the city and compared the two. So looking at Langford and Colwood. So Langford developed before Colwood. Like over the past 20 years, there's been a lot more development, but it was they were looking at high density, kind of smaller homes. Colwood was when I bought in 2000. And then again around 2004 or 5, Colwood was considered to be more a tonier area, a higher end area than Langford. I think now they're both fairly equal. So we're looking at 1.1 million in Langford, just under 1.1 for average price, and Colwood at 1 million. But we can see the slope.
Langford has some like with the Bear Mountain and some of the newer developments that are bringing up the averages, because newer homes tend to be more pricier. Even the West Hills, you're going to see higher average homes than what's available in Colwood, which tends to have less new construction and some older homes. Nice homes, some nice areas in Colwood too. Well, I guess you've got Royal Bay. You've got
Royal Bay and Triangle Mountain.
Yeah.
Those are both high end and now Olympic View.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I was looking at North Saanich and Central Saanich.
Mm-hmm.
So North Saanich tends to be larger lots. They're not pro development there, and then Central Saanich is more farmland. So it was hovering around 700,000 for a long time. It jumped to 900,000 in 2017, and then almost doubled in price to 1.5. That's average price in Central Saanich. So we're talking like larger lots. Some of them are active farm properties.
Mm-hmm.
And then North Saanich was hovering around the $800,000 mark. Again, they jumped in 2015 up to 1.2, and now they're over 1.6, almost like 1.7.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And Central Saanich is a great, in the past when the market was starting to ramp up and people were looking for homes in Victoria and maybe Langford and some of the different centers, they weren't necessarily considering places like Central Saanich or North Saanich unless they wanted to be a little more, a little further afield. But Central Saanich actually is and was a great alternative to, let's say, a commute from Langford versus a commute from Central Saanich. It's going to be somewhat equivalent, and the price points and the quality of homes and the villages that they have there all really a great space, and it was ripe for a pretty meteoric rise in values. I've been saying that, I've been thinking that for a while, and we can see, I mean, this is true of every area, but people are really now considering it as an alternative where they may not have before.
Yeah, and also it's interesting because I had people moving here from Ontario, and they really, really, really wanted to be in Broadmead. But then when they got here, it turned out that it was just not feasible. And so they ended up buying in Central Saanich, and they are so happy. They're in Brentwood.
Yep. Yeah,
So
absolutely. So I want to point out too, like when we're looking at these graphs and we're looking at, you know, going back as far as 1980, well, that last one was 1984. Many of these have been the 90s. You know, this rise in value that we've seen in the last, you know, year or two has been meteoric. But in general, you'll see, as Jane was saying earlier, we see sort of a slow, gradual rise over time, maybe a plateau for a while, the rise for a while, and maybe a plateau. Maybe there's a dip. You don't see a lot of dips. And if you do see dips, like there was 1994, after 94, there was some dip. After 2010, there was some lowering of prices. But they're not generally, they're not equivalent to what we see in terms of this great rise up that we've seen here. Are we going to, and the reason being is we don't tend to see prices drop as much, is because when buyers disappear and they're not in the market like they had been before, sellers just choose not to sell. And they wait for the values and the buyers to come back. Whereas when when there's buyers out there, they're not going to choose to wait for more sellers to come out. They want to buy now. They're not going to wait.
Yeah, agreed. And if like the strategy is, to me, in real estate, buy and hold. It's always a good idea to buy and hold. There's only a limited amount of land here in Victoria. Greater Victoria.
Yep.
Okay, so Esquimalt, I just love Esquimalt. I have a Facebook page or Facebook group called I Love Esquimalt, because I truly think, like relatively speaking to the rest of the city, it has always been undervalued. And obviously in 2020, it was discovered. Because if you look here, the average price in 2020 was like around 800,000. It's gone up to $1,050,000. And then you have just across the bridge, similar vintage homes up at 1.25. So
I've got to say, Esquimalt is and has been undervalued, but I've always felt like Vic West is just, it's such a beautiful prime space, just right near the, you know, walkable to downtown Victoria. And yet, yeah, it's an amazing area that is, I think, going to develop into a wonderful lifestyle location in the coming years.
Yeah. What's interesting is how, like literally you could see Victoria and Vic West took off in 2015 and less so in, so at 2015 in Esquimalt, we were looking around the $550,000 price range. And then always it's been about $100,000 gap. So Victoria Vic West was $650,000, and now we're at 1.25 for Victoria and Vic West, and we've got a $200,000 gap.
Victoria and Vic West is a funny one because it includes, you know, Vic West, it includes James Bay and Fairfield and Fernwood, and you know that it's a broad sort of spectrum of areas on various areas outside of and includes downtown Victoria as well, although there's less single family homes. But it's a harder one to quantify, I think, Victoria, because it's so diverse in terms of its areas.
Yep. Venny does not like our numbers here. Venny Manhouse, she's a mortgage broker. She's one of the first mortgage brokers I met in Victoria. Love you, Venny. Okay. Okay, let's just look at
what does she not like about our numbers?
I don't think she likes the prices going up. I don't know. You should have to comment. I just was checking to see who did the angry face. Anyway, okay. So benchmark, this is interesting. Home price index has this benchmark in pricing and index values. And this is kind of an ideal home. It's not based on a home. It's not based on all homes, it's kind of like the ideal home. It's like they look at a profile of a home is a good idea. So good way to explain it. So benchmark price for single family homes, let's just do the core, was 1,144,000 in December 2021. It was 1,122,000 in November 2021. And then a year ago, it was 915. So we made that jump that we were talking about for the benchmark price all year from 915 to 1144. Okay, West Shore, do you want to do that one?
Benchmark. I lost the plot there. I was thinking about something else. You continue on, please.
Okay, so the benchmark price, each home price index, 951 in West Shore, 912 for November 2021, and then in December, so it's gone from 722 to 951 over the year. That's up 31%. And then in the peninsula, it's at 1.133 million, up from 897 last year. That's up 26%. So just overall. And then in the greater Victoria for condos, I'll just do the core 570, December 2021, up from 487. That's up 17%. And then row townhouses in the core 828 compared to 681 last year, up 21%. So what we're doing is we're just looking at the data from numerous different perspectives. That
these are imaginary homes that someone has sort of synthesized. When you think about like a Fernwood home or an average Victoria home, what do you imagine? It's sort of the synthesized imaginary home that's been kind of Frankenstein together, and then we track the value of this imaginary home over time. But this imaginary home should represent that particular area.
That ideal, yeah.
That ideal, yeah.
So let's say you were looking for a townhome though, you're still going to get the best deal in the West Shore at 626 compared to 828 in the core. And same for condos, you're going to get the best deal in the West Shore at 436 compared to 570.
I have to comment because best deal is, relative. It depends on your lifestyle and what you're looking for and so forth. But you will get the cheapest place, generally speaking, unless you're going to Souk.
So I live in the West Shore, and I just want to say geographically, it is the center of the Victoria universe. Okay, buyer origins.
Interesting stuff. So this is from Real Estate Board stats. Realtors will, after completing a sale, get a little survey from the board, and they ask us, where did your buyers come from? And so this is maybe fairly accurate, let's say, but not necessarily 100% accurate, because it's just based on, for example, I might say my clients came from Victoria, but they may have moved here a year ago from overseas, but they were currently a buyer from Victoria. So what do you put into the stats for where they came from?
It also depends on where they're from.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, on who the agent is who's recording it. But anyway, BC buyers are mostly coming from BC, 88.93%.
Yep.
10.04% elsewhere in Canada. And then outside of Canada is just 1%. What?
Yeah. Which is interesting because, a lot of people think, oh, these foreign buyers there's still a lot of maybe thought that it's foreign buyers buying up all of our land, but it's really a lot of people moving within and around BC. It's most of the purchasing that's happening here.
I agree. And then looking at where people are from outside, I broke this down. So last year, there were 101 purchasers from outside of Canada, and 63 of them were from the US, 12 were from Europe, 11 from Asia, and I don't know where the rest were from. We don't know. So that totals... but
predominantly people coming from the US if they're coming from out of country.
Yeah. And then elsewhere in Canada, predominantly they're coming from Alberta. 11.9.
Not a surprise.
4%.
Well, and then actually predominantly Ontario, actually, if you look a little further down. It's mostly Alberta and Ontario that when we have buyers coming from elsewhere. And unfortunately for Atlantic Canada, it's really difficult for someone to sell there and move here because just the price differential is just so extreme. Whereas if you are coming from one of the centers in Alberta, Calgary or Edmonton, if you're coming from Toronto, Ontario, the property values are a little bit more, on par or even higher.
So let's just reframe that. It's a great opportunity right now to move to Alberta or the East Coast.
Yes. Yeah. And we've both had clients do that. I've had clients sell out here, cash out. They had a young family. In my example, they had a young family. They said, "I'm moving back east. I'm going to move to the Atlantic Canada. I'm going to buy a home there for $100,000 at the time, and sell their home, which at the time I think was $500,000 or $600,000. They could then raise their family for years without having to work, and then." Seriously, if you it depends what you want to do with your nest, right?
Okay, so thank you for a very comprehensive discussion. That took an hour.
God, let's get out of here.
So next week, would you like to follow up? What would you like to talk about? Would you like to follow up on stuff we talked about today?
Let's talk about, it's kind of over talked about, is tax assessments and so on, but there's always people with some questions.
Okay.
So we can talk about tax assessments. We didn't really touch on, there was a study done recently that was funded by federal government. There were 80 experts who had weighed in on this, suggesting that maybe a tax on a wealth tax, I guess, a tax on homes valued over $1 million would be a good idea for the federal government to implement to try to control property values and reduce investment in real estate, prioritize home ownership as opposed to home investment. So,
okay, well, let's talk about tax assessment. Let's also talk about age restrictions. My pet peeve of the day.
Okay, if you're feeling like ramped up and fired up about it, then let's do it.
Okay, let's talk about those things next week. All right. So, Andrew, how do people get in touch with you, my friend?
They usually call me or email me. They can call me at 250-360-6106. They can email me at info@andrewplank.com and check out my website, www.andrewplank.com. Got an introductory video there under the bio about me section to give you a sense of what it's like to work with me.
Awesome, I'm sure.
Jane.
All right. My name is Jane Johnston. I'm with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun. Andrew's with LePage. You can reach me at 250-744-0775. And I have two websites. One is briarhillgroup.com and the other is vancouverislandtime.com, where you'll find information on neighborhoods and buying and selling in real estate, including these videos. And if you want to email me, my email is briarhillgroup@gmail.com. All right. Let's tie this up with a nice bow. Thank you so much. I'm wishing you all a very, very happy new year. We'll be focusing on tax assessments and age restrictions next week.
Excellent. So thanks everybody for watching. And Jane, as always, it's a pleasure. And we'll see you next week.
And Vinny, it's going to be on YouTube as well as Vancouver Island Time.
Vinny was asking how she can get the first part of our video because she missed the second part.
She missed the first part.
Well, she might have missed the second part too. Sorry. I was trying to give our audio folks something to understand the context, but
okay.
Good.
Yes.
Thanks,
all these are all saved on YouTube. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Take care.
Okay. Bye everybody. Bye, Jane.
Bye.